Unit 4 Test Review. The first 12 questions are true or false questions. So we simply are just going to write T for true and F for false. Number 1, a scalene triangle is always obtuse. That's false. Number 2, an equilateral triangle is always isosceles. That is true because equilateral has 3 congruent sides and isosceles has 2 or more congruent sides. Number 3, a right triangle is sometimes equilateral. That is false because equilateral have to have 3 60-degree angles. Number 4, a scalene triangle is sometimes obtuse. That is true. Number 5, a scalene triangle is never acute. That is false. It can be acute sometimes. Number 6, an isosceles triangle is never right. That is false. We have a 45, 45, 90 right triangle that is also isosceles. So that proves that statement wrong. Number 7, an acute triangle is always scalene. That is false as well because I just mentioned that it could be equilateral. It could also be isosceles. Number 8, an isosceles triangle is always right. That is false. It doesn't have to be right all the time. Number 9, an obtuse triangle is sometimes acute. That is false because in order to be acute, all angles have to be less than 90. In order to be obtuse, you need at least one angle that is more than 90 but less than 180. So it can't be both acute and obtuse. Number 10, an isosceles triangle is sometimes scalene. That is false because scalenes have 3 different measurements for each side, and an isosceles has to have at least 2 congruent sides. Number 11, a right triangle is never obtuse. That is true. You can't be both right and obtuse. And number 12, an acute triangle is never equilateral. That is false. Again, acute means that all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees, and an equilateral triangle has 3 60-degree angles. So those 3 angles are all acute. So therefore, that proves that statement false. Number 13 says, what is the value of x if the triangle is equilateral? So since it's equilateral, all 3 sides are congruent. So to solve for x, you can take any 2 of the sides, doesn't matter which 2, and equal them to each other. So I could say 3x plus 6 equals 6x minus 3. Or I could say 3x plus 6 equals 9x minus 12. Or I could say 6x minus 3 equals 9x minus 12. It really doesn't matter which one you decide to equal to each other. Just only pick 2 and then solve for x in either equation. Again, it doesn't matter. Pick your 2 favorite in this equilateral situation. So let's say I'm going with the red scenario because it has smaller numbers. Makes it easier to do the mathematics. If I pick the red situation, the first thing I would do is subtract 3x from both sides, which would leave me with 6 equals 3x minus 3. And then I would add 3 to both sides, which would give me 9 equals 3x. And then divide both sides by 3, which would give me 3 is equal to x. So it doesn't matter which scenario you pick. X should be 3 in all cases. If you don't believe me, let's prove it. On the second situation, I would again subtract 3x. So I would be left with 6. Oh, goodness. Sorry, my pen is moving around hysterically. Will right, please? Thank you. 6 equals 9x. Oh my gosh. Minus 12. And then I would add 12 to each side, which would give me 18 equals 9x. I'm sorry. I subtracted 3x, so it should have been 6x, not 9. And then divide both sides by 6, and you would have 3 equals x. Over here on the right, on the far right, I would subtract 6x, which would leave me with negative 3 equals 3x minus 12. And then add 12 to both sides, which would give me 9 equals 3x. And then divide both sides by 3, so 3 is equal to x. So again, it only takes 2 on an equilateral situation to prove the point and to solve for x. I just showed you that it doesn't matter which 2 you decide, you'll get the same answer. On number 14, it wants us to find the measure of all 3 angles. The first one I would find is angle 1. I know that angle 1 plus 50 plus 90 is equal to 180. All right, I could combine 50 and 90, so I would get 140. And come on, please cooperate. Oh my gosh. So angle 1 plus 140 is equal to 180. And then subtract 140 from both sides, you would get angle 1 is equal to 40 degrees. All right, the narrow triangle at the top here is also a right triangle. So to find angle 2, I know that angle 2 plus 70 plus 90 is 180. Combine 70 and 90, you get 160. And then subtract 160, you would get angle 2 is equal to 20 degrees. Now to find angle 3, I know that angle 3 together with angle 2 and the 50-degree angle right here should form a line, so that means they all measure 180. So angle 3 plus angle 2, which is now 20 degrees, plus 50 degrees is also 180. So combine 20 and 50, you would get 70. And then subtract 70, you would get angle 3 is equal to 110 degrees. All right, for number 15, it wants us to find the value of x. If you notice, x is an interior angle, and 72 is also an interior angle, and 159 is an exterior angle. And x is a remote interior, as well as 72 is a remote interior. So we can use r plus r equals e. So x plus 72 equals 159. So if we subtract 72 from 159, we would know what x is. So let's subtract. you would get 87. So x is 87 degrees. Let's take a break right here and finish the rest in just a moment. You know what? I'm gonna keep going. All right, number 16. We're gonna again find the value of x. The first thing I would do is find the value of this missing angle to this leftmost big triangle here. First thing I would do is add 81 with 39, and in doing so you would get 120 because you added those together. And then I know if I take 180 minus 120, I would find that missing angle, and it would leave me with 60. So this angle is 60 degrees. All right, I would do the same thing with the rightmost triangle. Find the measure of this corner here. By again adding these two, which would give you 126, and subtract that from 180, which would leave you with 54. So this angle here is 54. And now you have to find the remaining angle in the little triangle that was formed by the two triangles overlapping. So first combine 54 and 60, which would give you 114. Then take that 114 from 180 to find that missing piece, which would end up giving you 66. And what you should realize is that that missing angle that we just found and x form a vertical pair. So that means they're equal the same. So x will also equal 66. On 17, it wants us to find x. So first, find the missing angle in this triangle, which also forms a vertical pair in this triangle over here. My goodness, why is my pen delaying so much? Oh my gosh. Thank you. Now I drew properly. So the first thing I would do is combine 44 and 58, which would end up giving me 102. And then take 102 from 180, which would end up giving us 78. So each one of these blue angles is 78 degrees. And now I know that 78 plus 2 x's is 180. Subtract 78, you would get 2x is equal to 102. And then divide by 2, so x is equal to 54. All right, again, we're going to find the value of x. What you should realize is this angle at the top, the 5x plus 2, is a remote interior. 4x is also a remote interior. And 11x minus 2 is an exterior angle to this triangle here. So I can do r plus r equals e. So 5x plus 2 plus 4x should equal 11x minus 22. Now combine our like terms. 4x and 5x together make 9x. Bring down my plus 2, my equals, my 11x, and my 22. Then I would subtract 9x from both sides, which would leave me with 2 equals 2x minus 22. Then add 22 to both sides, which leaves me with 24 equals 2x. Then I would divide by 2 on both sides, so I would have 12 equals x. So please do not forget those rules of remote plus remote equals exterior. And it even applies in this scenario, and I can guarantee you're going to see problems just like these last few on your test. So now we have triangle cat is congruent to triangle pig. Which segment in pig corresponds to segment AT? That would be segment IG, because both A and T are second and third from in cat, so that I and G are also second and third in pig. Second question, which segment in triangle cat corresponds to segment PG? So that means it would be segment CT. C is the first and T is the third. P is the first and G is the third. So gotta use the letters that are in the same location. Which angle in pig corresponds to angle A? That would be angle I, because angle A is second in cat and angle I is also second in pig. Which angle in cat corresponds to angle G in pig? So that means it would be angle T. So when it's asking for corresponding, just simply provide the letter or letters that are in the same location in both triangles. Number 20, name all the ways to prove two triangles are congruent. Those are the big five. We have side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and hypotenuse leg. Those are the only 5 ways we can prove triangles are congruent. Anyone would like for us to fill in the blank. Triangle JLK is congruent to, so if I trace it, starting at J, go down the double side to L, down the single side to K, I would have to start at M, go down the double side to L, and then the single side to N. So it would be triangle MLN. And you would say by side, side, side. Or you should notice that this is a vertical pair. So you could also say side, angle, side. Either one would work. Now, to give you another hint, there's a test question very similar to this review question, but it's only solved by the first one, side, side, side. Don't let it confuse you. It will not be a vertical pair. (22) Segment MP is congruent to segment PQ. So let's mark them congruent. NP bisects angle MNQ. So let's mark those two congruent angles. Then fill in the blank. Well, we know that one side is congruent, and we know that one angle is congruent. However, that's not enough information. I'm sorry. we know that there's a hidden side congruent. I apologize. The side that is shared by both, which is NP. So let's mark it with a double tally. So we have one angle and two sides in the triangle, in both triangles. Since the provided angle is not included between the two sides, we have to say these two triangles are not congruent. So we're not going to fill in any blanks. These triangles are simply not congruent because it doesn't meet one of the big five. Now 23 says the similar information. NP is bisecting that same angle, so let's mark the congruent angles. And we know that this line NP is being shared by both, so let's mark that. Then it tells us, oh, I'm sorry, I marked the wrong one. Eraser. Make sure you read all the information carefully, ladies and gentlemen. All right, NP is bisecting MNQ. No. Oh, I'm sorry. NP bisects MNQ, so let's mark that like I had it originally. It also bisects MPQ, the one at the bottom. So let's mark those as well. So this and this. All right. So now we can say, since we have two angles and an included side, it is by angle, side, angle. Sorry, with the delay, I have to read slowly. So MNP is the same as QNP. So triangle QNP. Therefore, we can say MP is congruent to QP by CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. (24) Find the value of x. So we have an isosceles triangle because I noticed that there's two congruent sides. And it's an isosceles right triangle because I see a right angle. So that tells me from our notes and just from memory that each of these angles has to be 45 degrees. So with that being said, I know that 2x plus 3 is going to equal 45. So now I can solve for x. This is one way to solve for x. There's a longer way, but this is the short way. So subtract 3 from both sides. You would have 2x equals 42. Then divide both sides by 2. You would have x equals 21. So since it's a right isosceles triangle, there's only one type of right isosceles triangle. And again, that's 45, 45, 90 degrees. All right, 25, we have another isosceles triangle, but it's not right, so there's not a shortcut this time. However, we know that angle A is going to be congruent with angle C because they're both the base angles. Sorry, I tried to mark it in the triangle, but my pen is not working properly today. But I do know the measure of all the angles. A plus B plus C is 180 degrees. Angle A is 6x plus 6. Angle B is 2x. Angle C is also 6x plus 6. Again, because those are the base angles and they're congruent. So add up all my x's. 6 plus 2 is 8. Plus 6 more is 14. Then add up my constants. I have 6 plus 6, which would give me 12. And now subtract 12 from both sides. You would have 14x equals 168. And then divide 168 by 14. Let's grab the handy dandy calculator. One, 6, 8 divided by 14. 12. So x equals 12. All right, 26, we have another isosceles triangle because I see that I have two congruent base angles. So that means SV is congruent with TV. So that means the measurements are equal. So now I can say 2x plus 6 equals 3x minus 6. Now to find x, I would first subtract 2x, which would give me 6 equals x minus 6. And then I would add 6 to both sides, which would give me 12 equals x. And now we've reached the last question, but it's a proof. Again, it's unavoidable, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to probably see them for the remainder of the year. Alrighty, it says given segment DA is parallel with segment YN, and that is illustrated by the arrows for us already, so we don't have to mark that. Then it also says that segment DA is congruent to segment YN, which is also marked by the tallies. So again, we don't have to mark it. They did it for us. We're going to prove that angle Y is congruent with angle A. First statement is segment DA is parallel with segment YN. Again, that was given information. And now it says that we have two angles. Trace them A, D, N. So it'd be this top right or top left angle right there. Is congruent with YND, which is this bottom right angle here. Notice I didn't mark the entire corner, just the portion that is being illustrated by the trace. Those two are what we call alternate interior angles. So they're congruent because of the alternate interior angle theorem. It was one of those pink sheets. Statement 3 says segment DA is congruent to segment YN, which was also given. Now it says segment DN is congruent to segment DN. Since we see the same thing on both sides of that congruent symbol, that's the reflexive property we mentioned a couple units back. So the reflexive POE, property of equality. And now let's focus on the triangles individually. So I'll highlight it. In DY. When I look at one triangle by itself, I am shown two sides, ND and YN, and then an angle that's included between the two sides. So these same markings are in the other triangle I did not highlight, two sides, one angle included. So the reason that those two angles are going to be congruent is because of side angle side postulate. And now we can say that angle Y is congruent with angle A because of CPCTC. But we had to do statement 5 first in order to do statement 6 with CPCTC. And this concludes your review. Good luck on your test.